It's really my pleasure to be here tonight and to close out this evening. The talks I found inspiring, and really, I'm hope I'll be able to sort of demonstrate that where we're headed with this project really is, I think, a very good fit with the direction that as I'm learning about Pisces. I think it looks like a very good fit. I want to recognize folks, and there are a lot of them that have been working on this effort with me, but in particular, Stephen Bograd and Robin Brown, and Sonia Batten is not on our authorship list, but Sonia has been meeting with us and really carrying forward sort of the spirit of Pisces and their interest. We have an MOU between North Pacific Anadromous Fish Commission and Pisces, and there's been some successful collaboration, but this is really about taking it to another level. And what I'm hearing tonight, I particularly enjoyed Takamura's talk about the evolution of Pisces from monitoring through to synthesis, and with more incorporation of the human dimension. And I think the UN decade gives us a really fantastic template and focuses the sort of the world's resources and capacity to take on these things. And I think we're at that perfect storm where there's a lot of opportunity. There's a big opportunity here. So my other colleagues I should mention, Brian Riddle from the Pacific Salmon Foundation worked very hard with me on the initial proposal that we put into the UN decade. Jock White, Robert Day, and our NPAFC Executive Director, Vladimir Rychenko. Okay, now, for some reason. Okay, there we go. So just a little bit of background. I don't think I have to explain to anybody in this audience about the increasingly severe basin-scale climate events that are shaping socio-ecological systems, not just in the North Pacific. Our organization, our partner in the International Year of the Salmon, is another regional fishery management organization at NASCO, the North Atlantic Salmon Conservation Organization in the Atlantic, and ICES that we work with as well. And the impacts that we've seen on salmon, really changing ocean conditions in the early to mid 90s, are the start of the salmon story and serious decline for a lot of populations. And the last 5 years with extreme events that have had fisheries emergencies related to fisheries, whether it's sorry in the Western North Pacific or salmon across the entire Pacific, Pacific cod and others in the Northeast Pacific. So we're in a time where the ocean science and the management of our resources and our coastal socio-ecological systems need to work together, and that came out clear in a lot of the presentations earlier this evening. So in response to the UN Decade Call, a number of us from Pisces and NPFC submitted a concept proposal that was about developing and implementing an ocean intelligence system to build resilience into ocean management systems with the North Pacific and salmon as an exemplar. So the objective, develop and test an international ocean intelligence system of monitoring and analytical approaches that provide timely knowledge and advice to decision makers about the current and future climate impact of climate on ocean conditions in the high seas and coastal socio-ecological systems. I should say salmon was initially the exemplar species in this, but ultimately it could include a large number of higher trophic levels and lower trophic levels as well. It could be the tuna commissions, it could be halibut, it could be pollock, it could be squid. And so what we really are seeing is the need for a modular approach to the open ocean science to then connect to these. I should say in that connection, the BECI, us fish people are not as good as the oceanographers, the ocean group, on developing acronyms, but BECI really came from a talk last year that Stephen Bograd gave when he said we really need our ocean understanding of basin events needs to be connected to understanding of coastal impacts. And so that went directly, that resonated with those of us that were coming on the fish and the management side and said, and hence we have BECI. The lead organizations are PICES and NPAFC, but we're really taking an expanded partnership approach in all of this. So the idea is that intergovernmental organizations, agencies, academia, NGOs, the private sector would collaborate in what we're envisioning as ultimately will be a special project that housed under PICES. It will take place over the course of the UN decade. The very rough estimates are in the order of $50 to $100 million to do this, with transformative elements related to governance. So how are we working together in partnerships? The use of big data systems and modern graph databases, and a big assist in understanding in the use of remote and autonomous technology. So some of the activities, it was mentioned, I think, in introduction, and you saw a couple of presentations this evening that cited the expeditions that were precursors to a Pan-Pacific one that were to take place in 2022. And they were held in 2019 and 2020 in the Gulf of Alaska. We envision a series of biennial iterations of surveys and the developmental years to build up the monitoring system that is then coupled, mobilize the data, building on the Global Ocean Observatory system, but focusing again on these modern systems that if we have our standardization done correctly, modern databases will allow machine discovery and synthesis of a lot of what we need to bring together. Key in this is the development of analytical and modeling tools to link our observations to decisions in socio-ecological systems. And as I said, at the heart, I believe, of this networking of people, ideas, and data are the development of graph databases to connect these things. Just to give you a sense, the first activity under the UN Decade Project of BECI will be this Pan-Pacific expedition that takes place between February and March. In 2022 in the winter. What you're looking at are 5 zones that have been carved up between 4 ships with Russian, American, and Canadian vessels participating. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a snapshot. You see some stations that were occupied during 2019 and 2020 that we're building on. This is not just, well, salmon is a species, the species of interest. It's a full set of ecological, it's a fully ecologically based survey covering oceanography up through the higher trophic levels, et cetera. The 2019 expedition, just a quick sense of what we're learning from this type of ecological system or ecological survey. They're allowing us to start to link in this open ocean environment, the distribution of these animals. And so on the top, you can see the distributions of chum, coho, and sockeye salmon, and start to relate it to the environment that we're seeing. So the chum and the coho were predominantly associated with warmer waters. In the lower left-hand side, you see the layout of the sea surface temperature in the grid. And some of this is shared in common with potential predators and competitors like squid, as well as association with different prey items such as pteropods and euphausids that look to be in association with the salmon. Some of the other new technology, and again, I'm just touching on a few things, but eDNA, environmental DNA, was tested during the 2019 and 20 surveys and would be a big part of the expedition as well. It allowed us, this is just some of the predators that we didn't see in our, the traditional fishing methods that are used on the vessel. So predators like salmon, shark, and some of the marine mammals start to come through in the eDNA, so that this effort starts to give you an opportunity to truly understand the biodiversity that's out in this open ocean and how it's functioning. How are we going to be organized in developing this? We're working right now on the governance arrangements around how a public-private partnership can be brought together. But as I said, we envision it to be a Pisces special project. Um, in a very tight connection to our last speaker. We see it really important in developing not just this expedition, but the entire project through the year, working towards generational, gender, and geographic diversity in all elements of the program. And our current program is working, and we see it very important to bring in Indigenous knowledge and Western science to inform the management systems and communities that we'll be exploring. I won't go into detail in this, but this is some of the governance that we're thinking. The upper left-hand corner with PICES and the Science Board providing the administration and the foundation for the support for managing the project. And on the upper right, the engagement of external partners in development of an ocean network and an advisory board with BECI for both the science and the management. This idea of co-development is important, and this will function very much like for those that are in the fisheries world, an approach called management strategy evaluation, where co-development takes place of the science to answer the management questions. Run through all of this informs development of a science plan and various implementation teams around multiple areas of the science that will be conducted, all managed through a BECI project office. I'm not going to go into detail, but there's lots of areas that these management, when we start talking about the science and linking it to the management, there's management for high seas fisheries, and that's where our regional fishery management organizations like the North Pacific Fish Commission and our commission related to salmon and pelagics, and then you start getting into, it can relate to shelf and slope complexes of two countries like Canada, the United States, or it could be a single country that wants to manage shelf and slope. In those areas, we all are a need for climate and vulnerability assessments. The illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing is an incredibly serious issue throughout the North Pacific, particularly the Western, and that needs science to drive understanding of changing fish distributions and productivity linked to this. I spoke to the basin and shelf connectivity. And as I understand it, baseline, BBNJ, the marine biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction is ramping up, and the need for science in relation to a huge number of issues around mining and impacts on multiple trophic levels need a baseline and need a system like this. So some of the next steps, and I guess coming through that, I didn't really speak to this idea of intelligence. So this stuff, this mobilization of data, the synthesis and this monitoring needs to happen on a scale that's much faster than it has taken in the past. And so that's why I'm looking towards the idea of an intelligence system when you think about military intelligence. So what are we going to do? What are the next steps? Establishing an interim project office that will develop the detailed planning. This will likely take place through a year of the salmon partner until such time as we can get a special project approved through PICES and with other partners. Year 2 would see transferring that project office to PICES and actually beginning implementation of BECI. The success of this is really going to depend on engagement of scientists like all of you in PICES, a top-down sort of with the focus of the infrastructure, the governance that you have, as well as the bottom-up engagement of science. So we're looking to have you, all of you in a fashion, participate in this. I've just thrown, for the current expedition, we have, I think, 14 formal areas where we have teams that are collaborating on the science that's being done in them. And this is, I probably missed some as I put together, filled out the matrix on the presentation. But if you have any interest in these areas, and I think there's something in it for almost everybody, we encourage you to be in touch with us. We don't have we should have a BECI website very soon, within the next 2 or 3 weeks. But for now, it can be contacted through the yearofthesalmon.org or contact me personally. And these are just some of our sponsors under the Year of the Salmon. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to all of you tonight.
Great talk, Mark. Thank you. There are a couple of questions in the chat here. First one is great project. The open ocean grids are impressive. Does it make sense to add any new coastal ocean observations to complete these?
Yeah, there at this point there isn't. So we certainly we've got a couple of gliders that will be making observations, coming folks out of University of Alaska Fairbanks and University of Washington, and so there will probably be some oceanography done in the northern part of the Gulf of Alaska, but at this point we don't have anything closer. I should actually, there'll be some ocean station PAPA sampling, I believe, as well as a Canadian couple of gliders that will be coming out from lower, so 48, 49 degrees, something like that, intersecting with it. But right now we don't have enough capacity to add more stations closer. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question here from Vera. She says, thank you, Mark. This is an incredible opportunity for collaboration. Are there specific questions that will be asked in the 2022 surveys that might highlight integrated aspects of the science on the cruises?
Yeah, there are so many, Vera, with the groups that we're working with. Of course, we're focused on sort of what is it going to take to adequately measure, the and monitor the environment in such a way that we can start to answer some of the big questions. And from an industry perspective, it's will we have salmon in 10 years? Why have we seen such dramatic declines? How does it relate to the productivity? Is the carrying capacity being of the North Pacific? Is it being the number of salmon that we're putting in from hatcheries across the North Pacific? Is it exceeding the carrying capacity and resulting in cascading impacts on other species? So we've got, but embedded in some of those bigger questions, we've got a group of, like I said, 14 different study areas, and the physical oceanographers all have sort of more detailed questions about aspects of it. And a lot of it is about resolution, trying to understand. We've been pleasantly surprised by the amount of structure that we've seen that's relating to distribution and biology, but with 60 nautical mile spacing, that's really a challenge. So we're looking at, can the eDNA start, from shipboard continuous sampling, start to fill in the gaps? Can glider observations that we'll have coupled with it that have got acoustic systems on it start to fill in, so we can match the resolution of what's driving the interactions with the environment for the upper trophic levels, and can we match that to the monitoring that's going on? So sorry, I went around on a few places there, but there's questions related to almost each area of oceanography that are of interest in this expedition.